This session is being recorded today. I hope you're fully aware of that. In today's session, which is a stakeholder session on the IAIS's work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have 4 main points in our agenda. Points 1, 2, and 3 should constitute less than half of the 60-minute session. In these parts, we aim to give you an overview of the work that the IAIS is doing on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the insurance industry, and then dive a little bit more into the work with its particular focus first on the benefit DE&I within the industry brings to governance, risk management, and corporate culture, and then turning to the connection between DE&I and conduct of business and fairer treatment of customers. Then we'll get to the really interesting part and the purpose of this session, and that is to invite your feedback, your input, your ideas, and we'll receive your questions. Today's other speakers are Helen Rao, Anna Genova, and Mark White, and their positions are detailed on the slide here. But in sum, they are esteemed leaders in insurance supervisory authorities that are members of the IAIS, and they hold IAIS leadership roles with responsibility for carrying out the IAIS's work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. In our session, we hope to really encourage your active input, and we've put a number of mechanisms in place for this. So during this session, please share an exchange of written ideas by typing your thoughts in the chat box here in WebEx throughout. Please also use your mobile device or your web browser to engage with us through Slido. You can use your mobile device using the QR code on the screen or by going to slido.com. There is a passcode, IAIS. Slido is how you can type in your questions. You can also raise profile of questions that you want answered by liking them. During this session, we will open a Slido poll with a number of questions to invite your feedback. We've also received a small number of planned pre-prepared interventions, and if time permits, we'll also allow raise hand function. But please understand this is just a 60-minute session. We perhaps will only scratch the surface in the depth of content that people would wish to share. There'll be other occasions. We also invited pre-submission of written comments, and a small number were received, so we'll share a brief synthesis of those key points. Then after today, we'll continue to receive your input. Please send that by email if you have further comments and ideas. And we encourage you to sign up to the IAIS email alert and make sure you tick an interest in the theme DEI, and that way we can keep you informed of further opportunities. So I hope you've managed to connect to the Slido. And here's a warm-up question so we can get a sense of where you're all joining from today. So it's great to see some different parts of the world. I recognize this means good morning, good lunchtime, good almost bedtime, and thank you for being with us, no matter where you've come from. Let me pass now to the IAIS DEI champion, Helen Rao.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. I am really delighted to be joining this session in my capacity as IAIS EXCO Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Champion. As you may be aware, in late 2021, DEI was added as one of the strategic themes of the IAIS work program, and you can see the set of 6 strategic themes here on this slide. The IAIS thinks of diversity quite broadly. The differences between people include different perspectives, different abilities, knowledge, attitudes, skills, experience, and also demographic characteristics. And those demographic characteristics are quite varied and include age, disability, ethnicity, gender, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, cultural, educational or socioeconomic background. And we also very much appreciate that national and cultural context means that DEI priorities are different in different parts of the world. As you may appreciate from what we've said before on this topic and the focus of tonight's discussion, we see DEI as particularly relevant to governance, to culture and to conduct, because we feel that a focus on improving and sustaining DEI will help insurers to build cultures that better support sound prudential and consumer outcomes. We also see clear links between DEI and financial inclusion and sustainable economic development, as well as with innovation and social responsibility, all very important themes. So the IAIS has committed to deepening and strengthening its work on DEI as a supervisory topic. As an aside, you will see on the slide with the themes that financial inclusion is another of the strategic themes. And more than 15 years ago, the IAIS adopted an access agenda to foster understanding of how regulation and supervision can support inclusive insurance markets, especially in developing and emerging economies. We have a financial inclusion forum, which serves as a platform for insurance supervisors to share supervisory practices and discuss issues, trends, and opportunities impacting financial inclusion. And we work with partners and support the work of those partners, such as the A2II or Access to Insurance Initiative, which is an implementation partner of ours on financial inclusion. And I'd particularly like to highlight their extensive work and resources and effort on boosting women's access to insurance. In 2022, the IAIS set out to understand the activity on DEI already being undertaken by insurance supervisors, relevant international organisations and the insurance industry, with a view to identifying where we could do further work in this area. And that culminated in the December 2022 publication of our stocktake report on diversity, equity and inclusion in the insurance sector. A survey of IAIS member jurisdictions and supervisors was a key information source for that stocktake report. That survey was made available to all members and we got 39 responses from a range of jurisdictions around the world, as shown on this slide. 36% of respondents were from Western Europe, 16% from North America, 15% from Asia, 8% from Sub-Saharan Africa, and the remaining 25% equally spread across other IAIS member regions. So really quite a good spread of responses. The number of responses represents roughly a quarter of IAIS members and likely reflects those who have most interest in the topic. But we still believe that the responses demonstrate that there is a growing level of interest in DEI internationally. And the survey responses also provide a useful sample that can help inform the further work that we do in this area. So turning to the stocktake report itself, it has three main parts. Firstly, we present the results of the survey of member jurisdictions that I just mentioned. And that survey covered questions on their observations regarding the state of DEI in the insurance industry of its jurisdiction and whether and how the industry is acting to improve it. The supervisor's perception of their mandate or role as a supervisor to promote DEI and the priority that they attribute to such action. The activity they have underway currently or are planning, if any, to promote DEI in insurers' governance and in insurers' conduct of business. The challenges they face in their ability as a supervisor to promote DEI in the insurance industry. And finally, what future IAIS work they consider would meaningfully support progress on DEI in the insurance industry. The report also includes a section on key insights from a sample of external stakeholders regarding why they see DEI as important to insurers, the biggest challenges in embedding DEI, and the role they see for supervisors in driving industry action. And then finally, we looked at current and planned work of other relevant international organisations to see the degree of attention or focus they had on DEI as a supervisory topic. And while the report does cite a few examples of increasing recognition and some new policy in this area, direct action is still largely at an early stage. If I reflect on my own case at APRA, while we've been talking to boards about the importance of diversity around the board table for some years and undertaken work on risk culture assessments, our work on explicit work on diversity, equity and inclusion is at a very early stage. But later in 2023, we do plan to consult on possible changes to our governance, prudential standards and guidance. And as part of that process, we will look to see how we more explicitly incorporate DEI considerations as part of that process. So the report, the IAIS stocktake report, wraps up with describing the opportunity that we see for further work by the IAIS to add value in progressing DEI across the insurance sector. And so what next for us? Well, in 2023, the work will focus on helping insurance supervisors further understand the benefits and relevance of DEI, the connection between promoting DEI in the insurance sector and their supervisory mandates, and the range of available supervisory practices that can be used to promote DEI. The work across 2022 was carried out by two of our working groups jointly working on this, our governance and market conduct working groups, with Anna and Mark leading that. And in 2023, each working group will take forward a new project on DEI. From the governance perspective, that will be focused on how DEI within an insurer's institution benefits its governance, risk management and corporate culture. And from the market conduct perspective, it will be focused on how DEI considerations in insurers' conduct of business and in supervisors' supervision of it may result in a fairer treatment of customers. And that's important, particularly accepting, as we must, that there is a diversity in the customer pool. So as we take forward the scoping and initiation of these new projects, we're very pleased to invite your input, your feedback and your ideas, both today, but also through the other subsequent mechanisms that Lauren outlined. And with that, I'll hand back to Lauren. Thank you.
So thanks, Helen. And at this point, we're going to pass to Anna Genova, Chair of the Governance Working Group. But first, I invite you to take out your mobile device and scan the QR code if you missed it earlier, or a reminder of the Slido details here. And we will open a Slido poll. It includes a number of questions that we'd invite you to think about while Anna speaks and then while Mark speaks. And later in the session, we will bring up on the screen the results. So these poll questions will be available to you over the next 10 to 12 minutes. So give them some thought. Thank you for your input.
Thanks, Lauren. And so while we test everyone's multitasking abilities, I'll talk a little bit about the Governance Working Group's area of focus on diversity, equity and inclusion, just following on from some of Helen's remarks. So the IAIS considers that diversity, equity and inclusion within an insurer can reduce the risk of groupthink, provide safety to speak up, raise concerns and provide challenge. And so through that, improve decision-making within firms and thereby positively impacting governance and risk management outcomes. Last year's survey that we undertook within the IAIS member community asked whether members thought that they had a mandate to take action on DEI in insurers' governance, and also what actions they were taking or planning to take in this area. So as you'll see in the slide, what we found is that 70% of the supervisors who responded reported having some level of mandate or legal framework that supports taking action to promote DEI in insurers' governance. But many reported that their work on diversity, equity and inclusion was quite an early stage, and also that there wasn't currently a clear picture as to what actions should be prioritised in order to embed DEI in the industry, reflecting that many of us are also still learning and on that journey alongside industry. Many supervisors suggested that a combination of different factors is key to supporting progress. So, for example, formal requirements could help, but also supervisors could also promote DEI through best practice examples and communicating with industry about the benefits and particular advantages. Frequent opportunities for an exchange of ideas and views between supervisors, industry, and other stakeholders are also regarded as important, and sessions such as this one can also play a big role. Now, looking at what supervisors are doing with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion, so the majority of those who responded to the surveys are currently taking some sort of supervisory action on DEI. And in this graph, you can see, which is taken from the report, you can see the most common supervisory activities currently being taken. So that's in blue, the bottom half of each chart, or which are planned to be taken in the future. So that's marked in yellow. You can see that the most frequently reported activity is advocating DEI, which can take form through written and verbal communications. The second most frequent is asking insurers about DEI during supervisory examinations and interviews. And then a third one along is information collection, followed by public disclosures as activities that are underway or in the planning horizon too. Now, we know that data collection and reporting on diversity data is important, but is also not straightforward. And so this is can be subject to different restrictions in different parts of the world. So we'd be very much interested in your thoughts on this topic in the chat box, including any challenges that you have come across or any solutions that you've also experienced in with respect to data collection. The report also features numerous examples from different parts of the world of supervisory actions to promote DEI within the insurance sector. So this is looking at the workforce, the leadership teams, and also the boards. We also have examples from some jurisdictions on developing new legally enforceable rules directed either specifically at the insurance industry or at the broader financial services sector. Now, so this was about what was covered in the report. Now, looking at our new planned work that Helen touched on briefly. So, put broadly, our goal is to further examine and explore the links between DEI within an insurance institution. So again, it's workforce, leadership, systems and processes, and also the benefits of DEI to its governance, risk management, and corporate culture. So something that the Governance Working Group has done a lot of in the past. And to help us take this forward, we're especially keen to hear from you on questions of the kind that are on the slide. So what are the risks and implications to governance, risk management, and corporate culture when diversity is lacking and inclusion is poor? What are the signs to look out for that there are issues or shortcomings with respect to DEI? What are the most important and impactful ingredients to have in place to improve DEI within the workforce and leadership? And then last but not least, what is most difficult for industry to achieve progress on? So I look forward to your responses shortly, and I'll pass back to Lauren.
So thank you, Anna. And at this juncture, just a reminder, and again, that QR code, just to make it really convenient to ensure that we are pointing you to the Slido, and that can be a useful mechanism to hear your responses to some of these questions that Anna just posed. Please take these details now, and let me then pass to Mark White, who's the chair of the IAIS's Market Conduct Working Group. Over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everybody. My pleasure to be speaking here today. I'm quite excited on behalf of the Market Conduct Working Group and the IAIS that the IAIS has taken what is a fairly novel step in not only focusing on DEI from an internal governance, risk management, and equity perspective, but we're also trying to understand how DEI can be built into the way an insurer conducts its business, which we believe can lead to better consumer outcomes, and how supervisors can work to do that. To understand this, when you look at ICP, the core principle 19, it talks about the need for insurers and intermediaries to treat consumers fairly. And I think what we're now saying is this begs the question, is what does that mean when you say a consumer or a customer? And that is the question, because traditionally there are target markets for insurance products, there are normative consumer groups in the way insurance products and services are delivered, everything from the way the product is designed, through the way claims are handled, through how things are marketed. And so we're now calling that into question to say, so what about diverse, underserved, vulnerable, minority, racialized, etc. consumer groups, and how are they treated by the insurance sectors, and how do supervisors help to ensure that there is fair treatment for all those different consumer groups? We think there's an opportunity that by focusing on DEI, it could facilitate greater innovation, prevent discriminatory practices, and overall just lead to better customer outcomes. And we think that this focus on DEI by insurers and supervisors can also help reduce misconduct. There will be stronger cultures built within organizations that are aware of this, and it can help stop misconduct within organizations and before it becomes systemic. And these, of course, can be legacy issues and often hidden by unseen biases. So we're very excited about this work. The stocktake report, which I'll just spend a brief moment talking about, showed that almost 80% of supervisors thought that, to a great or to some extent, that insurers do need supervision, and they do supervise them with respect to customer DEI issues. And that's a very high number. But the stocktake also revealed that DEI is not the way supervisors tend to think about the regulation of insurers and intermediaries. It is more of a byproduct in most jurisdictions, although there are some notable exceptions to that, where supervisor regimes have actually intentionally focused on DEI. Most supervisors come about it through fair treatment under ICP 19. We also saw through the stocktake that there is an interest, but most supervisors have not done the work to identify the correlation between the state of DEI within an insurer and the conduct-related outcomes. Let me give you a few examples of supervisory activity where it is clear that DEI is in the forefront of most regulators. When issuing new guidance or expectations on the treatment of vulnerable consumers, which has been a big topic in many jurisdictions, and thinking about accessibility of products and services. And when you start to look at those through various different filters, and not only some of the things that are inherent to the consumer characteristics, but that differentiate consumers, for example, access to technology. There's also exploratory studies which have been going on within different jurisdictions on what characteristics create vulnerability, and then what can that mean then for insurers to understand how to minimize the potential prejudice to those vulnerable consumers, and how supervisors can help backstop that. And this can then lead to industry practices that can avoid the discrimination that can happen to certain groups within those countries. And of course, this is inherently a jurisdiction-specific issue because each country has its own norms as to what is fair, what is discriminatory treatment. And so we also have to approach this in a way that's going to be open to those different perspectives when doing supervisory reviews, so it won't be a situation that there will be one size fits all and prescriptive rules about what DEI is about. Let me finally turn to the new work we're looking at doing, and I'm very excited about this. We want to explore further how DEI considerations by insurers and intermediaries as they conduct their business, and by the supervisors, the supervision of those businesses, can result in fairer treatment for consumers, and particularly, as I said earlier, consumers who are vulnerable, underserved, or have specific needs. We want to see that the industry can ensure that its products and services are accessible, meet those diverse needs, and that the way customers are treated is fair, taking into account their different circumstances. And this, of course, is because when you accept that the customer cohort doesn't just involve major consumer groups or normative target markets, it involves tremendous diversity within all these societies in which the IAIS covers. We want to see how the insurance industry can embed DEI values, not only within its own internal governance, but in how it serves its customer population. I'm very excited about the rest of this discussion, which really we're just kicking off today. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on what we can do to understand DEI from a conduct perspective. Lauren, back to you.
Great, thanks, Mark. So we've now covered the first three components of today's session. So this has been the IAIS updating you on the work that we did across 2022, which culminated in the stocktake report, and our thinking about the direction of our work into 2023 and extending into 2024. A reminder that if you have questions, the way we'd like to receive your questions is in Slido. And at this point, we turn to the second chapter or second component of this session, which is really to receive your input. I'm going to leave the Slido poll open for a little bit longer and turn first to some of the pre-requested verbal interventions.
Thank you. I would just like to wrap up this session by thanking everyone for their participation and their engagement. As Lauren said, we got some rich insight through the responses to the questions, which we'll need to consider and distill. But this is only the beginning of the conversation on this. It is an ongoing effort and work program, and we are very keen to make it a very inclusive process. And so there will be opportunities for feedback. And I think you have been advised of the different ways in which you can continue to provide any input or thoughts that you have. And as we go through the work program, through the governance working group and the market conduct working group, there'll be further opportunities to engage. So thank you again. And it is an important topic, but it needs to be collaborative. And so we look forward to your ongoing engagement. I'm going to sign off and go to bed, and I hope all the rest of you have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.